Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the one and only Los Angeles Football Network. A very special evening today with some very special individuals. Our once-a-year edition of the Victory Bell Show that only we can do on the LA Football Network for the big game Saturday night, 7:30 in the Rose Bowl with the USC Trojans against the UCLA Bruins. Now, there's content that's out there that's USC-centric breaking down the game. There's content that's out there that's UCLA-centric breaking down the game. But nowhere do you have, as George Costanza in Seinfeld would say, the worlds colliding as only they can with the LA Football Network. It is my honor to sort of play host. I always am like the play-by-play analyst, the color commentator, if you will. I get to play host tonight, which is so fun for me. But we'll just go around the horn quickly with all of my esteemed colleagues. To my bottom there is Will the Thrill Decker, host of the Bruin Bible. Will, how we doing tonight?
Doing fantastic. And this is one of the more fun traditions we have at LA Football Network is getting everyone together for the biggest game of the year we've got in the city of Los Angeles, USC UCLA. Ro and I have been smack talking all off season. We've been having fun with it. I haven't seen my guy Rye or Die, the Godfather, for months. It's great to see him. This is just going to be a lot of fun, man. I'm super pumped for this and can't wait to get it started. So thank y'all for having me a part of this, man.
Well, Thriller, it's always such a pleasure having you in everything. And then your counterpart in the other corner, the red corner, our great host of Salute to Troy on the LA Football Network. You know him. You love him as Coach Rowe. Coach, how we doing tonight?
I'm doing well. You guys got me up past my bedtime, but I'll do this. For this moment, I will do it. It's the most underrated rival in America, and I'm happy to do it. I get to see my guys. I'm here with Thrill again. The tripod is together. There's nothing we could do. Bearded Bandit. Even Will's a bearded bandit today. So welcome to the Bearded Bandits, Will. The Bearded Bandits are back.
You know, I was coming in, man. I had to bring the beard out for y'all, man.
I just can't wait to talk about the story of Charles. That's all I can't wait to talk.
Ooh, Coach, we can't steal too much here. Okay, we can't peek too much here. Come on now, Love it. Well, it's always great to see you, Coach. And then, of course, the man who needs no introduction, the founder, the CEO of the LA Football Network, the Godfather, the man, the myth, the legend, Rye or Die, Mr. Ryan Dyrud. How we doing tonight, brother?
What is up, bro? It's fun seeing you as Brent Musburger instead of Kirk Herbstreit today. This is fun. You're doing great. So
I'm fired up. I'm out of my element tonight, but I'm having some fun.
No, doing great. So no, good to see you guys. Good to get the band back together and with the best rivalry in college football. We talk all the time. No other rivalries like it because these schools are only 12 miles apart, but no other network, I think, covers both teams within the rivalry. Like there's no Michigan websites that cover Ohio State also. So it's a very unique, fun proposition and glad to do it with you guys.
No, absolutely, Ryan. That's what, that's what makes this week so special for the network and so special, for me in particular. I get to sit really at the intersection of this rivalry. Obviously, have the great fortune to co-host the Bruin Bible with my main man, Will, and also have the great fortune to co-host Salute to Troy with Coach and Rye. So having gone to USC undergrad in the peak of the Pete Carroll era to then doing grad school at UCLA, it is a little bit of both. I'm split down the middle this week. And I'm always reminded of my wife making my Letterman's jacket. There's a custom Letterman's jacket that I only wear once a year, only for the Victory Bell game. It only comes out once a year, half USC, half UCLA. So if you see me out there Saturday night, come on down and say hi. Or, this is also one of those weeks where I can't make anybody happy. If I say something good about one school, the other school is going to pile on. If I criticize one school, the other school is going to pile on. So I'm excited about being the court jester tonight with all the heroes in the audience here.
Well, it's smart of you, Jamal, because typically you do kind of play a side. So I think it's smart that you're playing that even line.
Hey, listen. Rye, I love it. This is the CEO of LAFB. Rye, why don't you show everyone your shirt tonight? Let's take a look. What are we rocking tonight?
Oh, just because I knew this show, I But hey, I got to say real quick, because you guys, and all in good fun, but you always paint me as this only USC guy, and I love USC now, but I've always rooted for both. I've said all along, like this city is better when these teams are both good, and this game is better when both teams are good. So I'm always rooting for both teams to be good. I didn't go to either school. I went to Long Beach State. So we had Corey Paz on our show once, and we had Frosty Rucker on our show once, both a UCLA alum and a USC alum. Both of them said their second favorite team was the opposition because they want them to be good when they play. So I know it's all in good fun, but I root for both schools to be.
Okay. We'll hold you to that, Ryan. I love it, and so that's what makes this rivalry so special. Schools 11 miles apart. You've got houses divided, couples are divided, parents are divided, kids with one school, kids in the other school, and just the intersectionality of it all is what makes it so fun. So before we sort of jump into this particular game, breaking it all down for you, all the key matchups, all the key players, all the key storylines, I want to go around the horn just a little bit. And from each of you, what's sort of special to you guys about this rivalry? What's perhaps a favorite victory bell moment? And just, what does this rivalry mean to you? Thriller, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I came into this rivalry, as somebody that covered UCLA for LAFB just a few years ago, and there's two situations that stand out for me specifically. The first one was a big one for a lot of reasons. 62-33 at the Coliseum. Dorian Thompson-Robinson's 6-touchdown game. But the cool thing about this, and we're doing this podcast for the 4th straight year, that's the first time I met Ryan in person. That's the first time I met you in person. And I hold that very close to my heart as someone that's, put his heart on his sleeve and kind of rode for the UCLA community ever since then. And it was that was my first time ever tailgating at a USC game. I went to Arizona State. The games that I went to, they were both, at ASU. So I never got out to USC and got a tailgate out there. And I mean, just meeting you guys in person, having a blast, that is going to be something I hold near and dear to my heart as I, move on throughout life and just do all the different things. So 62-33, Chip Kelly needed that victory too. As you remember, Jamal, clearly on the hot seat, had to get a victory, delivers in spades, wins the last game against Cal after that. And then you just kind of saw the upward trajectory of what UCLA could be if it was managed properly. And then last year, I can't lie, that was something sweet. You come in with a returning Heisman Trophy winner in Caleb Williams. The chips are stacked against us. We had a couple losses beforehand. And that's the great thing about this rivalry. You got to throw out everything you know about football coming into a rivalry game, because UCLA was coming off of two of its worst losses of the season. If you guys remember the Arizona State loss, we lost to a guy that our current tight end was playing quarterback for ASU that night, that we lost the game to. We lost to a Cal team that, we are paying calimony to. We call them little brother for a reason. They were clearly mismatched with us. And then to come into that game and get a W out of that. I mean, Ethan Garber showing the poison fight to not only get that victory, but to lead us to a bowl game. Hey, man, it's kind of the same scenario right now. You can beat USC and you can get to a bowl game. Those two ones really stand out for me. So those are the big ones that I've been a part of this rivalry for, that I've loved and, will cherish for the rest of my days.
No, same here, Thriller, and so well said. And I know it meant a lot to Ryan, myself, and the whole network. Those have been some incredible memories, really, on a personal level. And ladies and gentlemen, it's serious. Will Decker is on his A game when he calls me Jamal. I mean, otherwise I am known as the madman to this guy. The only two people, when it's getting serious, they call me Jamal, is Will Decker and my wife. That's when I know it's antennas up. It's time to get serious. So Thrill has got his A game tonight. I'm all about it. Love it to death.
Real
Coach,
quick,
how about yourself? Go
real
for
quick,
it.
what does the wife call you? Like honey?
I'm about that too.
I mean, I'm not gonna reveal the nicknames. They're all very
Poopy
loving
Bear.
nicknames. They're
Poopy
all very
Bear.
loving nicknames. It's all great.
Okay.
It's all great. So it is what it is. I like that. Ryan's getting me in some trouble already. I love it.
Okay, all right. I'll figure it out.
Poopy Bear.
Coach, over to you. As someone who's played in this rivalry, of course, and now as an analyst and as an observer, what are some huge memories? Born and raised, you and I sort of share that, born and raised in Los Angeles. What 360-degree perspective you have on this rivalry and this game in particular? Share with us some notable memories for you.
So one memory I can remember is my senior year being recruited by SC was like Reggie and Matt's final year, And then that shellacking that they gave to UCLA that year, and the Reggie jump over the pitcher, Reggie jumping over the pylon, that was just like the cap off to the end of the season to like the perfect team that in USC history.
That was fun fact, Coach. That was my last game in college in the Coliseum.
Really got you. So yeah, and so I was just there. I went to every USC home game. That was the Fresno State year and all that year. Although that was a great year. Another good one is one I played in is when we played them at the Rose Bowl my sophomore year, and they got us on the tip pass to send us to the national championship. And just what we felt that whole year was just like, that's not going to happen ever again. And we just had to put a beating on them like we did that year. And just like, that was a season for us gone away. So we were supposed to be a national championship team again, but when a season when really goes to waste and you end up in the Rose Bowl, that's a winning program. I don't know if UCLA ever been in that since the 90s, but either here nor there. But
shot fired.
But neither here nor there. I'm just saying that was a game for us. That was just like all right, we sealed the deal. Like, now let's go to the Rose Bowl. Let's own the Rose Bowl. That was always the goal for Pete Carroll. It's on the Rose Bowl, make the Rose Bowl. But that one was just like the get back game that we had to get. Wasn't our ultimate goal, but it was the goal that we had control of, and we were able to control it. So those two games in memory. But I mean, just to cap it off, like this is one of the few rivalries that's in one of the greatest stadiums. Either when both teams are on the road, they're playing in one of the mecca stadiums in college football, either the Rose Bowl or the Coliseum, with so much history and so much greatness behind it. The Dodgers played in both stadiums at one point in time. You know what I mean? Like, there's been so much history, concerts and speeches and Olympics and winning World Cup championships either in Pasadena or in LA. Like, so like this is one of the has to be top 5 greatest rivalries in college football.
Oh, I love it, Coach. And I mean, fun fact that a lot of folks don't realize, under the age of, let's call it 40 or 45, is that USC and UCLA both shared the Coliseum up until 1982. Yeah. And so, that's a very unique element to this rivalry as well. That, who knows? I mean, there's a lot of conversation of, should this game perhaps be moved to SoFi or something like that? Or, it's, so it's very interesting. We'll get into all of that. Mr. Dairud, over to you.
Yeah, similar to Will, I'm newer to the rivalry. Obviously, followed it a long time, but growing up in Denver, it wasn't like the mainstay. So then, once I moved out here, went to school with no football team at Long Beach. So obviously, then really followed both schools and went to games and started following the rivalry. And then when we started covering them, that's when I really got into it. But for me personally, one of my great memories, I think, is 2019. At the Coliseum, USC won that game. It was the Drake London kind of coming out party. In that one, I think he had like 140 some yards. Keaton Slovis threw for like 500. UCLA, though, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, also still young, had a really good game as well. So it was a fun football game. But for me, what made it so fun is, I actually watched the game with Corey Paz of UCLA. And so watching the game with him, if anyone has met, which you guys have all met Corey Paz, but if anyone listening has met Corey Paz, he is a character, UCLA Bruins quarterback. But he's a UCLA guy, but he just loves to party and have a good time. So even though they were losing and lost the game, it was still fun. And then afterwards, we all went to the 9-0 afterwards, celebrate the win. Lendell White was there hanging out. My guy Frosty Rucker was there. It was just a collection of older SC guys all celebrating, and the place was packed. So it was a really fun kind of welcome to the rivalry for me back in 2019. And the game was fun, but then just the atmosphere of that college experience within the football realm, I think, was so much fun.
Oh, that's a great story, Ryan. Every time you say it, it's such a lovely one to hear. And fun fact, I mean, that 2019 game, yes, it was the Drake London coming out party, but that was the first time in the history of the rivalry that one team had 4 100-yard receivers in that game. There was 4 100-yard receivers with Amon-Ra, London, you had Michael Pittman, and then exactly. Yeah. So, it was really, that was also quite the ball game. So tons of history. Obviously, we get into this game overall, it's 52-34-7 is sort of the official line of the rivalry.
Who has the lead?
I'm sorry?
Who has the lead?
That would be the Trojans, but Coach, I have to also say that it's either 50 or 52. Two of the wins were vacated, so I don't know how official the overall number is, but it's 50-34-7 or 52-34-7. Guys, let's jump into it. The 2024 edition here.
Man,
right?
hang on. You got to share your favorite.
Oh my
memory.
God, there's so many. I mean, I think it's really a combination of a few. I went to SC from 02 to 05. And so that was the 34-game win streak, the three Heismans. I mean, it was sort of peak, USC football the last 50 years. I think the game that I'll always remember from that period of time was the game that Coach was talking about, because it was the 66-19. It was the final game of 05. And it was the last game in the Coliseum for the class of 2006. And I remember that was the year that Reggie ultimately, won the Heisman, but it was all about Leinart that day because he was the 3-year starter. It was his last game. I remember he was the last guy to run out of the tunnel on senior day. And I recall him starting that game 0 for 7 because he was so jacked and so excited. He overthrew every pass, the first 6 or 7 minutes of that game. And then the game sort of played out. And that was sort of an iconic 05 team that I'll always remember. I'll also always remember 06, the 13-9 game, just what that meant to both schools and sort of walking in there. SC was a 21.5-point favorite, 22-point favorite. The line was sort of moving right there. That was still the biggest upset in the history of the rivalry. And what that meant to sort of the UCLA fan base. SC got, knocked out of the national championship game, never to return to this point. The curse of Patrick Cowan now is going into its 19th year. The curse of Eric McNeil is going into its 19th year, and just what that game means. You could sort of walk around in the city and just sort of say 13-9, and everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. And then I think there was the other two that really stand out. One was obviously the 11 game that was, 50-0 for SC. It was the end of the Rip Neuheisel era, which in many ways I think changed the trajectory of UCLA football because famously he redshirted Brett Hundley because he thought he was going to get that 2012 season to be able to sort of prove it out with the quarterback that he recruited. Unfortunately, he didn't get that chance, and Hundley went on to be 3-0 against SC and have a ton of success. But what that sort of game meant to the rivalry, it sort of bookended that 13-year period from 99 to 11 where SC won 12 out of the 13. And then the other game that, of course, stands out is the one that Will talks about, which is the 62-33 UCLA game. The hurdle with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the autograph where the USC kid goes down and gives Dorian Thompson a USC hat, and Dorian signs it in-game in the end zone. What an iconic moment that was.
Paying attention to this, Ro? I see you looking off to the side. You paying attention after that 62-33 comment right there? Just want to make sure you're in this, man.
Oh, you talking about are we still talking about the rivalry where it's 52-30 something?
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
My fault.
Oh,
you ever heard the story about the blind squirrel? Every now and then he gets a nut too. So there you go.
Man, 2 of the last 3. That's a lot of nuts recently.
Well, here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing to sort of set the stage as we sort of segue into the 2024 matchup. The last 12 victory bells, it's 6-6. So the winner of this game gets bragging rights not only for this year, but over the last 13 years. So this is a big, big ball game just in terms of the history of the rivalry. For some, that's sort of hard to imagine. But the loser of this game is going to be 6-7 in the victory bell over the last 13 years. And so this is a real inflection point in this rivalry historically. But as we sort of get into the 2024 season, both teams, obviously, it's been a roller coaster ride, having followed both of them as closely as I have and analyzed both of them as closely as I have. We'll start a little bit with SC. What a roller coaster that's been. Start of the season, I think it really started Big Ten Media Day with Will and Rye, with the two of you guys there, and just there was sort of an atmosphere, per your firsthand experiences of just kind of Lincoln Riley's first Big Ten Media Day. He looked like a senator. There was a statesman type of energy and aura to him. A lot of intrigue, particularly with the heritage Big Ten schools of what USC is going to be in this particular conference. A lot of hype. And then obviously the season starts out with a bang with the big win against LSU in Vegas. Expectations are sky high. That was sort of followed up with the tune-up game against Utah State. which I think only seemed to elevate the expectations given the fact that SC won that game 48-0. And so much of the conversation at that particular point in time at 2-0 was now this great offense finally has a better than average to above average to perhaps even good or great defense. Is this team sort of destined for a playoff run? Expectations sky high. And of course, the Michigan game happens there from there. And then the team, really, the wheels have sort of fallen off of this season. Losers of 5 of their last 8. Lincoln Riley sort of has called it 5 plays from 10-0. You could also call it 3 plays from 2-8. But the wheels sort of have fallen off of this season. And here we are sitting at 5-5 with SC needing to split their rivalry games to become bowl eligible. And then you sort of flip it on the UCLA side. What a emphatic debut also at Big Ten Media Day with head coach Deshaun Foster. It was the press conference heard around the world. It was that was quite the introduction where unfortunately Deshaun sort of froze on stage and really sort of set the perception, I think, of the UCLA football brand a few steps back going into this season. Then when you sort of overlay that with a game where UCLA was down 10-0 at the half to Hawaii, had to sort of eke that game out late in the fourth quarter. And then you had this game against some team called the Indiana Hoosiers that you sort of expected was going to be a bit of a tune-up. That ended up being a 29-point loss in the home opener. And then that led to LSU, Oregon, Penn State, and an absolute murderer's row schedule. Now, in hindsight, Indiana's a pretty good football team. That perhaps was the toughest 4-game stretch in all of college football. UCLA then follows that up with the heartbreaking loss to Minnesota, sitting at 1-5. You're thinking, is this a 2-10, 1-11 football team? And then they sort of turn it on 3 straight wins in the Big Ten, 2 of them on the road, multiple time zones. You're thinking all the momentum in the world now has been had, and then they fall short, last week to Washington, sitting at 4-6. Now UCLA needs to win both games to become bowl eligible. So roller coaster ride for both. Before I kind of kick it over to you guys, there's, I think, a couple of interesting matchups and storylines. Really want to hear everything that you guys have to say. To me, this game is sort of 3 matchups, if you will. I think the first matchup is this UCLA offensive line against this USC defensive front. And it's sort of the offensive line that right now can't seem to block anybody against the defensive front that can't seem to sack anybody. And so, this UCLA offensive line struggling since the start of the year, lots of injuries. We don't know if Nicky Prongos is going to play. Jalen Jeffers has been ruled out. Carmody looks like he's been ruled out. So very thin on the offensive line. How is this offensive line going to hold up against an equally banged up USC defensive front? Unbelievable stat. The leading USC sack getter this season, there's 3 guys tied with 2, one of whom is Eric Gentry, who hasn't played in 6 games, and he's got the co-lead in sacks. So who's going to sort of win that matchup, to me, I think, is element number 1. Number 2 is Jaden Maeva's first kind of, in air quotes, road start, high energy environment. How are he and Woody Marks with this sort of zone read, RPO kind of established scheme that Lincoln has created last week? How are they going to stack up against this UCLA fearsome foursome defensive front of Jay Toia, Femi Oladijo, Kane Madrano, and Carson Schlesinger? All 4 guys, NFL quality guys, huge disruptors. How is Maeva going to play with those guys, and how is he going to integrate Woody Marks accordingly? I think that's going to be an incredible chess match. And then I think the last key matchup is going to be that USC secondary against those UCLA wide receivers. I think this is going to be a game where USC is facing more talent in the wide receiver room, I think, than they've faced all year since LSU, to be honest with you. I think there's a wildly underrated, skilled bunch here with UCLA. How does this banged up secondary that competed so well and so hard against Nebraska last week, how do they match up with a ton of talent that perhaps is underrated with the likes of Logan Loya, with the likes of Quasi Gilmer, with the likes of J. Michael Sturtevant? So I kind of see this as sort of those 3 matchups. I've been talking a ton. Let me kick it over to you guys. Ro, I'm going to start with you. What are the matchups you're seeing? How are you seeing this game shake out?
First, before I do get into this, So you guys go to on YouTube, go to the LAFB Network YouTube, and you get to interact with other Bruins fans, so all my Trojans fans out there. So switch over real quick if you can. Anyway, with the matchup, so this is an interesting matchup because you're trying to figure out, is USC and UCLA actually the same type of team, right? It was kind of like the thing last week with Nebraska. Nebraska and USC are the same type of team, but USC was able to play better for a longer period of time. They're able to come out with a win. You look at UCLA. At one point, they were at the bottom of college football record-wise, just performance-wise and everything like that. They go on their little run. Now they are in the same position as USC right now. They have to win to make a bowl game. The difference is a successful season for UCLA is making a bowl game. Our season is completely a failure. So you start looking at things at motivation. How are you motivate? Where are they at? What are you going to get? To your questions, Maeva, he's going to be in the Rose Bowl. Unfortunately, I don't know what the attendance is going to be like. Hopefully it is great, so he gets to be inside that environment. We can see how he reacts inside that environment. We move over to the defense. The front has to get to Garbers to make this whole thing work. Gentry being the sack leader, he hasn't played since the first or second home game. That's shocking. I'm not worried about the secondary because we're completely healthy now. Jaden Smith is healthy. Kamari Ramsey's healthy. We got our leaders behind it. I'm more worried about the front seven and what happens with the run game. That's where I'm more worried about. I think the secondary played well for them being their first game fully back. This will be their second game back together, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm more worried about the front seven. Are they able to stop a run, and can they make something happen there?
Oh, it's a great point, Coach. Thriller, over to you. How are you seeing this?
There's a lot of different elements in this game, and I think from a UCLA standpoint, it's been the question we've been asking all year long. Offensive line, man, it's been so disruptive and, to the formation of the offense, installing a new offense with Eric Bieniemy. We have, for most of the year, dude, we were 134th out of 134 teams in rushing offense. We had a nice little week against Iowa, and that's kind of pushed it up to 128th in the country when it comes to rushing offense. The offensive line has given Garbers little time, throughout most of the season. And then we saw some progression. We saw them against a Rutgers front. We saw them against a Nebraska team where we looked pretty good. And then an Iowa team, we thought we had this false confidence that we had fixed the problem from beginning of the season. And then what happens last week against Washington? 6 sacks allowed, 9 tackles for a loss. The run game, 33 carries, 52 yards. That's a 1.6 yards a carry average right there. If the offensive line can function enough for Ethan Garbers to make plays, this is a really good offense. If you get things going, you can protect the quarterback in the right way. So UCLA's problems have not changed whatsoever. It's the offensive line base. If you guys can stand strong for Garbers, give him that extra second and a half in the pocket, good things will happen. When I look at the defense, I feel very confident in our front seven. We are 7th in the country in rush defense in terms of yards allowed. Our fearsome foursome, as we dub it, Jay Toia, find me a better defensive tackle right now in college football than Jay Toia. The kid has been balling out. He's getting triple teamed in that Washington game, just absolutely making plays. Femi, what an advancement for him just to switch positions, as a junior in college and become a very effective edge rusher. He's had 6 tackles for a loss in the past few weeks, 2 sacks, making plays. We've talked about it. There might not be a more athletic linebacker in college football right now than Kane Medrano. And don't get me started on my pick for Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, Carson Schwessinger. Guy is leading the Big Ten in tackles, single-handedly leading this team to big plays. Had those 2 interception game against Iowa where you look like, you squint your eyes out there. You're thinking, is that Manti Te'o in 2012 with what this kid's doing? So that group is fine. Where I'm worried about this, and we've made average quarterbacks look great, 8th in Kaliak Manis when it comes to Rutgers. They can hit on that deep ball. Max Brosmer, when the game is on the line at Minnesota, making plays. USC, for all of their faults, they are still a very effective passing offense, 13th in the country when it comes to passing offense as it stands right now. Where does UCLA stand? 101st in passing yards allowed. So if Jaden Maeva can make a couple throws, kind of build that confidence in this rivalry game, that's the matchup I'm going to be looking for. If UCLA's corners can hold it down I feel confident this defense can get them off the field pretty quickly.
Oh, that's a great holistic analysis, Thriller. Mr. Dairoot, over to you.
Yeah, well, I have one main matchup, but just real quick to double down on what Will said, because it's great and what I was going to say. And really, from the USC side, like this, it's going to be really interesting to see what Lincoln Riley shows up. Like we can talk players, and because Lincoln Riley this season as a play caller, and obviously this is only game 2 at Jade Maava, but has had some fantastic play calling games and then some absolutely perplexing play calling games. You look at the Washington game with their great pass defense and they throw it 30 times in the first half or whatever. So this game is matching up like it should absolutely be a clinic for Lincoln Riley with everything Will just said. Great run defense. Great. So we don't need to run the ball. We can throw it around the yard because they don't got a good run defense. So what will Lincoln Riley do and what Lincoln Riley will show up? But the other thing I'll just say that's different than everyone else, because I agree with everyone else saying, is this is going to come down really to who doesn't shoot themselves in the foot, with both of these teams have done constantly. We talked about it last week, but USC did just about everything they could to give the game to Nebraska. They still battled their asses off, obviously got the win. UCLA has been in some games close, and the penalties have been, the discipline has not been there, the turnovers, red zone turnovers from Ethan Garbers. So which team is going to actually protect the football, not have bad penalties, and not shoot themselves in the foot? And that's basically, long story short, who's going to play the cleanest game is probably going to come out on top.
No, it's a great point with all three of you, and it sort of segues us really nicely to, I think, building upon what all three of you said. And I think there's a motivation question, there's sort of a discipline question, and then there's kind of an X factor question. And I'm going to sort of throw it around to you guys. Who do you think is going to have a higher level of motivation to play this game, given sort of where the season is and what's on the line? Where do you think kind of each team's psyche is right now to play their best football on Saturday night? Who do you think is going to be the more disciplined team? Obviously, Deshaun Foster, ironically, has discipline as his first pillar. UCLA might be one of the most undisciplined college football teams this season. And then, Rye, to your point, obviously SC has sort of struggled seemingly in key moments to really sort of hold it together. Who in your guys' opinion is going to hold it together, particularly in a rivalry game, particularly when it's going to be so juiced up? And I think about some of the players that are sort of crossing over and coaches. I mean, think about Kamari Ramsey in this game and how the UCLA team is going to sort of receive him. Think about Kyle Ford in this game and how, he's going to be received. Think about Danton Lynn and sort of that matchup, with Eric Bieniemy and what that is going to look like, particularly with Akaika Malloy and Danton Lynn. So, who do you think is going to sort of show up with greater motivation? Who do you guys kind of see as perhaps X factors? I think we always think of the quarterbacks as the leads in any sort of a college football movie, if you will. And I think that's obvious. Garber is going to have to play really well for UCLA. Maeva is going to have to play really well for SC. But who is sort of an X factor that you see, hey, if those one or two guys for our respective sides play really well, we feel like there's a 90% chance we're going to win this game? And then ultimately, who do you think is going to be the more disciplined team? Rye, I'll kick it back over to you to start.
Well, I'll go stick with the kind of the easy, obvious answer with the trenches. And, when you look at SC, Elijah Page is a guy that struggled early. I mean, his coach, Lincoln Riley was very nice and said he was cramping, but he basically got benched in that Michigan game. And then he's been out and he's actually improved a lot over the last course of the season. I think we haven't talked about it a ton, but the offensive line has improved through the season. They're still not great. They still have work to do, but they've improved. So when you look at Elijah Page and Mason Murphy, and you guys mentioned it, those front seven and particularly Femi Oladipo, who's just been, Latu reincarnated this season, essentially. So how are they able to slow him down and keep that pocket clean? Because I didn't look at the pressure rate, but even against a really, good Nebraska defense and a good Nebraska front who have some monsters up there, Maeva was pretty clean most of that game last week. So are they able to kind of carry that over and respond? And then Jamal, you mentioned it right at the top, like on the other side, like with the injuries that UCLA has, if USC can't get home, when you look at Braylon Shelby, who was at practice today in pads, missed last week, but he looks like he should be good to go. With the young guys in Cam Fountain and obviously Jameel Muhammad, who's kind of one of the vocal leaders on the team. Like if these guys cannot get home, then that's going to be a big issue, because I think Garbers we've seen, and you guys know a lot better than me, but is a different quarterback when under pressure. A lot of his interceptions have been pressure caused or tipped at the line of scrimmage, or his arm is getting hit as he's throwing. When he has time, I mean, he's a really accurate, smart decision passer. So I like SC's secondary in this game, but any quarterback, if they have all day, is going to carve you up, regardless what your secondary is. So to me, it comes down to, I'll just say, if I'm picking two players, two X factors for you, Madman, I'll go Elijah Page, and then I'll go with Braylon Shelby coming back from injury.
Lovely. The spot on. And yeah, Rye, I think you said it best. I mean, this is, sometimes you have these great matchups where you say, the team that's sort of lightning versus the immovable object. I mean, this is literally the team that is, struggling to block anybody versus the team that can't get home against anybody. Something's going to have to give there. And whichever one does, you got to like that team's chances. Thriller, over to you. What are your thoughts?
Man, so I think the most motivated person coming into this game is not a player. It's got to be Lincoln Riley. I mean, can you imagine if he loses on Saturday and has now lost 3 of his first 4 games against UCLA as a coach that signed this $100 million deal, coming to USC, his list of Heisman Trophy quarterbacks coming in. The hype was real. I mean, you guys remember we sat with him at one of the Pac-12 media days when he got announced to come to USC. That was big time. That was a huge deal. You know what I mean? This is a big time thing with Riley coming in. I think with Riley, he can reach a point where it's unrecoverable for him and his reputation as a USC coach. If he loses this game, like if you beat UCLA, you get to a bowl game, you win the bowl game. I don't know if anyone's predicting them to beat Notre Dame as it stands today, but we'll see what happens. Notre Dame obviously lost to a small school team this year. If you finish the season on the right way, USC has the fan base and the hype machine that it is. You can kind of rally yourself around that. Say, hey, we got to a bowl game. We won. We just signed the 5-star quarterback right down the road. We got momentum now. We can make things go. But if you lose to UCLA and you miss a bowl game this year, when your excuse last year was to go pluck UCLA's defensive coordinator who beat you the year before and add him to your own staff, you're out of excuses, man. You're kind of, shame on me. You fooled me once. Now that you fool yourself twice, it's like shame on you. You know what I mean? It's one of those kind of scenarios. So I think Lincoln Riley has the most to gain or to lose in this scenario, period. It's not even close. When it comes to the X factors on the field, the guy that I'm looking at, Jaden Maeva, he's new at USC. This is going to be his first true road start in a rivalry game. What helps out a quarterback more than anything is a run game. And Woody Marks has been really outstanding this year, 5.9 yards a carry, 9 touchdowns on the ground, close to 1,100 yards on the ground with 2 games to go. He's been a really good running back for USC this year. He's done great things. If he can move the football, and granted, this is not going to be easy. UCLA's strength of their team is that front 7 and stopping the run game. I mean, look at what they did to Caleb Johnson a couple weeks ago at Iowa, a guy that is arguably the runner-up for the Doak Walker Award winner with Ashton Jeanty at the top. They held him to 40 yards, and you and I were at the game. Two of those carries made up for most of his 40 yards, and that was before the halftime.
Yeah, it was prevent. Yep.
So it was easy for him. So I think if Woody Marks can play above average and take some pressure off Maeva, to just allow Maeva to play his game and play it in a manner where he can just kind of operate the UFC offense at a high level, I think Woody Marks is the key to unlocking all of that. When it comes to UCLA, we could talk about the offensive line. We could talk about the lack of run game. But you said it, man, a couple episodes ago. If Logan Loya was the receiver for UCLA that is leading the team in catches, touchdowns moving forward, UCLA doesn't lose a game for the rest of the season. It has blown my mind, the lack of targets that UCLA has given to their senior leader in the wide receiver room. Good things only happen when you give the ball to Logan Loya. Don't even get me started on Jay Michaels tournament. We don't even know what the hell happened there. But with Logan Loya, you at least have a surefire guy that led your team in receiving last year, has made continuous big plays when his number has been called. Scored a touchdown against Nebraska, scored a big-time touchdown. It was Big Ten play of the week when he beat, the safety over the middle against Iowa. So Logan Loya, if you give him the ball in his final matchup against USC in his career, I think if you get Loya over 100, 110 yards, I think you got to be feeling pretty good about yourself from a UCLA standpoint. So Woody Marks and Logan Loya are my keys. And, Lincoln Riley, there's nobody that has more to lose in this game than Lincoln Riley does.
Oh, those are some great takes, Will. And just to piggyback off of you, I mean, I think the lawyer one is spot on. And my God, I mean, where is J. Michael Sturdivant? I mean, I'm just sort of preaching to the choir here. This is more sort of therapy for me. I'm not really, this is sort of a rhetorical question. I mean, there's people that are on like a milk carton. There's people that are on witness protection. There's people that, you claim landed on the moon. They're more notable in society right now than J. Michael Sturdivant is with his UCLA football program. I mean, and for the life of me, Rye, I'm going to quote you on this. You had mentioned this about Kyle Phillips a couple of years ago. You said Kyle Phillips is going to make an NFL team very happy, in the subsequent spring. When J. Michael Sturdivant blows up in the NFL Combine and everyone says, who was this guy? Where was this guy?
This secret gem.
We've been waiting for this guy for 2 years. Having gone to UCLA practice, this guy is an NFL caliber player, and for the life of me, I have absolutely no idea what J. Michael Sturdivant is doing. So great take, Thriller. And the last thing I'll say, Coach, before handing it over to you, I think it's a really interesting point about Lincoln Riley. This is year 3. If he doesn't win this game, Will, to your point, he would be 1-2 in the rivalry. But you also got to remember, the 2022 game, that was a Corey Foreman interception away from going the other way. And if you're sitting at 1-2 in this rivalry, in Lincoln Riley talk, one play from being 0-3 in the rivalry, there's definitely going to be some concern with regards to that. So great takes all around there, both Will and Rye. Coach, over to you. Please regale us with your wisdom.
So the only thing I'm gonna have to correct Will. Lincoln Riley ain't got nothing to worry about because Mikey Williams is a big sack to carry. So it doesn't even matter what he does for the next 2 years. He's just here and we're stuck with it. So I was looking up
taxes and Lincoln Riley's buyout. The three certainties in life.
Yep. Yeah. So I was looking at some stuff while you guys were talking. You guys some good things. UCLA's rushing defense is 7th in the nation, right? And so the thing that worries me is it may not be an easy running game up front, right? The power and the counter might not hit up front, and it's fine. Woody Marks is a back that gets stronger as he goes. What I'm worried about is if Woody Marks has 8 carries for 25 yards, that he no longer runs the ball anymore, and Woody Marks finished the games with 12 carries for 53 yards, right? It's a proven fact. It's true. Make it happen. Everything goes through Woody Marks. Woody is the guy. Woody should be the MVP of this game. Woody is the face of this team. Woody makes Jaden Mayava's job a lot easier. Now, the thing that nobody ever talks about, and I shouldn't say the thing, I'm sorry, the person nobody ever talks about, the up-and-coming star at USC, the one that everybody's jersey is going to be wearing, is number 6. Malachi Lemon is a dude. I don't think there's nobody at UCLA that can cover him. He's kind of like a hidden athlete. He doesn't look that great, but once he gets the ball in his hand, he does some crazy things and he gets out and he gets going. He's been so under the radar the whole year. Guess what? Guess who leads the team in receiving? Lemon. You know what I mean? He's starting to get a lot of receptions. I also like the fact that they're getting the ball to Zach Branch in ways that makes him effective, fly sweeps and things like that. I think that the game plan doesn't need to change from last week. The problem is that you may have to be more patient. This is the number 48 defense overall in the nation. This is the top 7 Russian defense. This is going to have to be a patient thing. Like Denzel Washington said in Remember the Titans, it's like Novocaine. Just let it wear on you and then everything will be effective.
Nice.
Like it's nice. Going to be fine. You know what I mean? Like we're playing. I mean, we have to be realistic. SC is a better team than UCLA, right? UCLA is hot right now, but overall, you have to say this is a better team than UCLA. If you're a UCLA person and you think USC is not better than UCLA right now, you're not being realistic with your life. We have to be realistic. Just because you're hot doesn't mean you're a better team. You have to remember at one point you only had one victory.
Yeah, clip this off. We need to.
It's live, Will. It's live, Will. I'm sorry. Like, so it is what it is. So you have to come out and be the better team. Here comes the bad day off on the USC side. USC is not disciplined. USC is not mentally prepared. USC is ran by a guy who I'm starting to think that it's a Mike Leach thing because the Louisiana Tech coach, we're only 2 plays away from being you know what I mean? Like it's a Mike Leach thing. They'll come out and say, well, we're not going to any national championship for a playoff, this game doesn't matter. They took the spirit out of this game, right? And they're trying to make it seem like, oh, he tells us his coach off. He's bad. He's a bad coach. He's bad. We have a very bad guy. Say what you want. UCLA has better starters. That is a terrible. Take that off, Will. That's awful. Anyway, Woody Marks is better than the whole UCLA team. Anyway, so Lincoln Riley has to be able to prepare this team for a game of people who. This game is important for UCLA. It's not important for USC. Lincoln Riley has to make this game important for USC. And that's the problem that we had last year. That's the problem that we probably had year one. He doesn't understand how important this game is for these kids in this state. And if we don't do that, UCLA will win. If he comes out and shows up prepared, USC is the better team. USC should win wholeheartedly, and they should handle UCLA without a problem.
Coach, it's interesting. Couple things that you said, and want to piggyback off of what kind of you and Ryan said. Ryan said something earlier where he was like, "What Lincoln Riley is going to show up, right?" And we sort of saw an extreme version of Lincoln Riley in Washington. That first half, 29 throws to 9 runs. Even though conventional wisdom suggested that he do the exact opposite, or at least be more balanced. Here, conventional wisdom is suggesting that UCLA is a terrific run defense, so you got to throw more. But I wonder if that really is true in the sense strategically, because I think you brought up a really interesting point. I mean, do you really want Maeva to be back there throwing 45 or 50 times a game in a rivalry game, given the fact that he's a gunslinger, given what we saw against Nebraska, given how raw he is? That in many ways, I think would be a recipe for disaster for USC if he sort of slanted to be more pass heavy just because UCLA is a great run defense. I think to your guys' points, and Coach, to you in particular, I think you have to sort of stay balanced and live with sometimes the 1 yard, the no gain, the 2 yards, just to be able to keep the defense honest, to hopefully sort of open some things up in the second half and potentially even wear this team down the stretch. So I think that's going to be interesting. Does Lincoln Riley have the patience? Does Lincoln Riley have sort of the fortitude to stick with something when it's only going to be perhaps 1 yard, 2 yards, no gain? Because everything that we've seen from Lincoln Riley, not just the 2024 version of him, but in the past, has been the moment the run game goes south, 1 play, 2 plays. We saw it against Minnesota. He abandons it and just starts throwing. And I think in a lot of ways that would be a recipe for disaster, because if you have Maeva throw 45 or 50 times in this game, there is a very high likelihood that you're going to have 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 interceptions. So that's going to be very interesting to look for. And I think the other thing, Coach, that you're saying is, I hear you in terms of historically, but I think if you break down these rosters right now, and if you just look at the offensive talent and the defensive talent on the field for both teams, I think these rosters are very close to even, if not completely even, when you look at it from a talent perspective. So I do think this is going to be a game where execution is really going to be paramount, because I don't think this is one of those years where there is a statistically significant talent discrepancy one way or the other. So that's going to make the intrigue even more.
Real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I wanted to piggyback on your rushing point you're saying, just to add something. And this is not at all to take anything away from UCLA, who's been great against the rush all year. But to your point, Jamal, about sticking with it, when you look statistically, and obviously you play on the field, stats don't tell the entire story, but statistically, last week, USC had one of their best rushing performances of the season. Nebraska, even after giving up 182 yards, only gives up 110 yards on the ground. UCLA gives us 100. So they prove they can do it against a very good rush defense. Nebraska has a top 20 rush defense in all of college football, even after giving that up against USC. So the big key is don't run it up the middle against Toia. You got to go to the outsides, because Toia is just a different level in that center. But they prove they can do it. But to your point, Jamal, will they do it?
Can they? Exactly. And that's the key, right? Absolutely. And I think with Nebraska, it was interesting because they were very stout in the middle, to your point. I think Nebraska was a little bit of a beneficiary, if I'm being honest, with an easier schedule up front. I think it's inflated some of their defensive numbers, because truth be told, we kind of forget that what happened to this defense against Indiana. I mean, they lost 56-7 in that game. They got absolutely crushed. So how good was that Nebraska defense. That's why sometimes the law of averages can be a little bit deceiving. When you give up 56 to kind of an elite team, you wonder. But to your point, right, spot on. Can you stick with it even if you're getting moderate success? I think it's going to be fascinating to kind of get into the psychology of Lincoln Riley with that regard. All right, gentlemen, we are at the point. Okay, the talk is over. The analysis has commenced. It is prediction time. Who is winning this game? By how much? Who's going to be the game's MVP? And who's going to be sort of dancing into the midnight, of Pasadena, victorious with the victory bell? Mr. Dyrud, I'm going to start with you.
Oh, man. I mean, it should be a great game. We had the 2 years ago, the fantastic one you mentioned at the Rose Bowl last year. Good for UCLA, not good for USC, but just not as good of a game overall. I think we'll have a more similar maybe one to that one 2 years ago of a fun back and forth. It's hard, man. Like UCLA during that stretch, that 3-game winning stretch, I was so impressed, the turnaround, and you guys mentioned it and you obviously talk about it a lot more than me, but I was so impressed, the turnaround, just the way the team held together and then got that done. But the ups and downs of this team is, I just don't know what they are. Like, I don't really truly know what their identity is. There's time where the run looks great, like you mentioned, Will, against Iowa, and then they like abandon the run and Eric Bieniemy thinks he has Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball and they start throwing it all over. So I just don't really know the identity and what this team is. They are sound defensively, but this will be one of the better offenses they've played, at least in terms of air attack. And USC, same thing. It's been a roller coaster, but they've been in every game. And I'm not trying to quote Lincoln Riley and play away, but they have been in every game. They're a team that I think has the ability to beat almost every team, but they can almost lose to almost every team. So which team are you going to get? I think Maeva has given them enough of a spark as like a reboot for this team that, and that's nothing against Miller Moss, but it just, you could see it. There's just a little spark, a little swagger by this team that they didn't have 2 weeks ago. So I'll be close. If we're going scores, I think I saw the spread's like 2.5, isn't it? It's like a really close.
No, it's like 7.
7. You're right. 7. The Rams
7.
game is 2.5. I was doing all these updates today, looking at like 7 different games. So 7, yeah.
7 on the road. SC has 7 on the road.
Yeah, shocking. 0-4 on the road. This will be a first chance to win on the road. But I'll take SC. I'll go 28-24, so they don't cover.
Okay. Will the Thrill, over to you.
Man, so I'm seeing on the spread -4.5 USC.
So it shift. It moved.
Yeah, I don't know. Here's my take, man.
You better be looking at Bet Online.
Close. If UCLA's offensive line, and if Prongos plays, I mean, it's still a question. He's missed the last 2 games. He's been our most consistent offensive lineman all year long. If they can protect Garbers, you don't need to get a huge, amount from the run game, but just enough to kind of keep this offense moving and get Bieniemy and Garbers comfortable enough out there on the football field. I'm calling it 23-20 UCLA. Our guy Mateen Bagani kicking a last-second game-winning field goal at the Rose Bowl. UCLA gets it done, and they've got a shot to go to their first bowl game under Deshaun Foster. That's my take. I think Jay Toia is going to be, in arguably his last game against USC, a guy that was at USC, which a lot of people forget, and then transferred to UCLA. I think he's going to be the difference maker. I think Bagani kicks the late field goal. USC gets the ball back, and Jay Toia just disrupts that line, similar to what Aaron Donald did in the Super Bowl against Joe Burrow, just blows it up. Give me that, man. Jay Toia bringing it home for UCLA, 23-20 Bruins.
Okay. Coach Rowe.
Hope does not belong in athletics, and there's a lot of hoping in Westwood.
Hope is not a strategy.
Oh, yeah, hope is not a strategy. Okay, first of all, everybody's worried about USC's line. Elijah Page single-handedly handled a dude that was 6'5", 300 pounds last week with no problem, who's probably going to be a first-round pick. Easily single-handedly handled this dude. Everybody just forgets that. Ryan probably knows his PFF grade, which was very high. We have to be you guys got to, man, I'm leaving the country. We have to stop with hope and maybe and ifs and that. If that's the case, if we're going to if we look at it, USC beat LSU, UCLA lost LSU, USC is better, USC is going to win. That's not the case. I understand that, but that's along the line that we're starting to get into with sports and everything, and we have to stop. UCLA is not a better team than USC. It's been shown record-wise. It's been shown performance on the field. SC is a better team. Is it a big margin? No, but it's big enough to where the bookies are giving 4 points on the road. At one point, they opened up at 7. We have to be realistic. SC's the better team. SC will win this game. I don't know how dominant they're going to win this game, but there's going to be a point in the game where UCLA is going to wake up on Sunday morning and be tired of seeing Woody Marks running up their back, because this is the Woody Marks breakout show for LA. He's going to become an LA legend. SC probably wins this game by 10 points. I'm going to give a realistic score, Jamal. I'm going to go 30-20. USC wins this game, and we no longer have this talk. It's not my fault that Chip Kelly told the boosters, hey, this is what you need to do to win. The boosters didn't want to do it. Chip Kelly didn't want to deal with the boosters, and they ran them out of town, and you could have been a 7-win team this year. It's your fault you're in this situation because you guys don't want to win. SC wins. Sorry.
Love it, Coach. Love it.
This is the most confident I've ever heard of a 5-5 team. I just got to say it. Yeah,
Coach.
The most confidence I've ever heard.
Coach, you guys are on one. You guys are one. You guys had one win at one point. You got hot and you won 3 games in a row. Congratulations! You beat Hawaii by 3 points. Like,
we're
stop.
A different team now, Coach.
We're a different team now. That's hope. I don't hope. I'm realistic. I don't hope. I'm sorry, Will. This is how I get on the Salute to Troy. You guys barely beat Hawaii.
Is playing at LSU more difficult than playing at a neutral site? Answer me that.
Is playing at LSU more difficult than playing at a neutral site? That's an excuse. I don't do excuses either. The same on the field. It doesn't matter. That's an excuse.
Will, just picture Coach when we do our live show after USC loses. This is the joy and sunshine we get.
That's it. This is all the stuff people need to really hear. Did LSU play USC? Yes. Did LSU play UCLA? Yes. That's all that matters. We could play in the parking lot as far as I'm concerned. And I'll tell you this much. I'll even help you guys out. If SC would have played Indiana, Indiana was steamrolled SC. I'm 100% honest about that. But the difference is that I don't care that UCLA lost to LSU. I don't care that USC beat LSU. I know this at one point. At one point, you guys thought your season was over. At one point, you only had 1 win, and you only won by 3 points against Hawaii. Okay, you guys got hot. Good. Then you had to go play a real football team at their house, and you lost to them. Now reality is set back in. You're barely going to beat Fresno State. You have to be realistic with yourself and what you're going to see. We know how bad we are. We know we need to fire a coach. We know that we're a 6-win team until we get rid of Lincoln Riley. You guys, this is why our education is better than yours, because we're realistic with life. We need a better coach. We're waiting for Barry Odom to come so we can win national championships. If you guys start thinking like us, your program will be a lot better.
Coach, I love so much what you said, because I love the point about realism. And I'm always reminded about the point of realism back in 2022 when you picked the victory bell to be 13-10 UCLA.
I felt weird that day.
48-45 game, Coach. So hearing you talk about realism is quite a delight. I must say so myself. And
the line did move though. It opened at 7 and it went to 4.5. That's even on Bet Online, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I think, Coach, to your point, I'm not sure anyone sort of brought up LSU as sort of a justification, because I think that there's many common opponents, right? There's LSU, there's Washington, there's Minnesota, there's Nebraska, there's Rutgers. A lot of common opponents that both teams played. But I hear you. And I'm going to leave you guys with this, right? I mean, Ryan's not going to let me get off this show without my prediction, of course. Look, I think this is going to be all the points that you guys said, I think are very valid. To me, it comes down to one thing. This is a rivalry game, and who is going to want it more? And I know how much UCLA wants this game. I know how important the SC game is to UCLA. Year 1, Deshaun Foster, 4-6. This is sort of the Super Bowl for UCLA right now. Opportunity to beat your rival, close it up with Fresno State, and get to a bowl game that first year. I have to be honest. And Rai, you mentioned kind of the spark with Maeva. I don't know how much USC cares about this game on Saturday night. I'm not sure how fired up they're going to be, how desperate they're going to be. They're talking about the flu now, the last couple of days. And it just, I don't get that sort of energy from this Trojan team this week. that is sort of the requisite energy that's needed to really perform well in a rivalry game. Every time in the recent past that SC has sort of had a lost season, I mean, think 2018, think 2021, think 2023, every time SC has had a lost season, they've always lost this game. And so I understand what the line is saying. I just think UCLA wants this game more, and they will sort of overcome their deficiencies. And we can argue whether those are more deficiencies than SC or not, probably are. But I think UCLA wants this game more. And as a result of that, I think the game means more to UCLA. I think UCLA is going to win the game 30-20.
Shame on you, Jamal.
So,
shame on you. Oh, wait. So USC's already saying that there's the team has the flu and things like that?
Yeah.
There's so many goddamn excuses that come out of Lincoln Riley's mouth.
So,
see, like this right here. See that word? That hope word? That's a bad word. You don't hope in sports. It's either you're going to get it done or you're not.
Going to get it done or you don't.
It's either going to get it done or not.
I've been hoping for Lincoln Riley to turn this thing around, and he has done.
He was supposed to. He was supposed to turn it around. He did not. Now it's time for him to go. It's time to exit stage left.
And I'm not. I know you always think I'm defending. I'm not defending him, but he was asked at the game why a player didn't play, and he said he had the flu. And a lot of players got the flu. So he didn't like bring it up out of nowhere saying an excuse. I just wanted to,
Well, he did bring it up today though, right? They asked him point blank, how's the flu going with the team? And then he coughed and said it's going around. So it was a direct question and it was a direct answer. So he definitely acknowledged it. So
I wonder, but
he got asked
the Ryan Dyrud Lincoln Riley special of the evening,
Is it gamesmanship though? Is it gamesmanship? Is he throwing a little gamesmanship in there? You know what I mean? But
I just think the energy. I expected a little bit more energy, to be honest with you, even from the Maeva game. From everyone around the program, even after a bye. I'm not getting the sense that there's extra juice for this
because
game.
They didn't play well on Saturday, Jamal. That's what I'm saying. Everybody got high on Maeva, and they didn't play well on Saturday.
Exactly. So we'll see, Coach. If there's a healthy respect that you have to have for these next two games for SC for your two rivals. So is there enough juice is my question. So that's all we got for tonight, guys. Always a pleasure. We had some laughs. We had some cries. We had some screams. The full LAFB experience. You guys got anything else before we sign off?
I just want to let you know this. I've been kind of looking at who's been logging on. SC already won. We have 42 on USC's network and only 29 on UCLA's network. So we're already ahead. We'll even split it. So there's 125 on Twitter. It's 126 on Twitter. So even if we split, USC still win.
There you go. And the Electoral College math provided to you by Coach Alfred Rowe.
I just had to get the last jab. I'm sorry about that. I love you, though, Krill.
Absolutely. Well, guys, always a pleasure. This is going to be an incredible week. LAFB Network has everything covered for you over the course of previewing this game, and we're going to be going live all together one way or the other, whether it's going to be late Saturday night or early Sunday morning. So stay tuned. This fearsome foursome, if you will, has you covered all week on the one, the only, the magnificent, the beautiful LA Football Network. And we are signing off, guys. Thanks so much.
Live free, fight on.